3, 2, 1.
Welcome to QueenStage. We're here to spotlight the athletes, stories, and action in women's cycling, giving the sport the attention it deserves. And we're going to do so with the quality, depth, and personality the sport demands.
I'm Rosael Torres-Davis.
I'm Betsy Welch.
I'm Anne-Marije Rook.
And I'm Molly Hurford.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the QueenStage Women's Cycling Podcast, where we have been covering the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift for the past 8 days. We are nearing the end of the race, which we are both relieved and saddened about because we love women's racing here at the QueenStage Women's Cycling Podcast. We're about to break down the penultimate stage, which is stage 8, and we will also talk about the final day tomorrow. Before we dive in, a huge thanks to Ruckus Composites for making this show a reality. Built on a mission to push the boundaries of carbon fiber performance, Ruckus Composites and Aerospace are leaders in engineering, research, repair, and inspection. So thank you again, Ruckus Composites. I'm Betsy Welch. Let's talk about some mountains. Let's talk about some French women. And let's talk about another really exciting day of racing.
The QueenStage.
The QueenStage, our namesake. I don't know what else to say except Vive la France. And God, I know I've said this multiple times, but I sure wish I spoke French, especially today. Obviously, we had a French stage winner in Pauline Ferrand Prevot, which is so exciting, and we will spend lots of time talking about her today and her ride. But also, you know, on these climbing stages, the action is slower, so there's sort of more time to look around and maybe get sentimental. And I felt that way watching Pauline climb up the Col de Madeleine. The fans, we don't know if they were all French, but by the way they were responding to Pauline, you can imagine a lot of them were. It's always a big deal in any Tour de France, men's and women's, when you have a French rider doing well. And in our case now, we have a French rider who's not only doing well, but who may win this whole tour. And that's so exciting. Also, a shout out to 3 other French women who are now in the top 10 overall, which is incredible. So 4 out of 10 women in the top 10 are French: Avita Music, Juliette Labou, and Cédrine Cabal, who have all had incredible tours. We can talk more about that. But yeah, that's my sort of highlight and opener for the day is stoked for France, stoked for Pauline. It was really just an iconic day in that way. Rook, what do you have to say?
Well, it's also the 3rd French win in a row, which it hasn't happened before.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And, you know, God, we even saw Maeve Squeven giving it today. Like, girlfriend could not, she went until she couldn't, and that was so cool. And it was also cool to see all the signs on the side of the road, Go Maeva. So, yeah. Way to go, France. I think we're all rooting. We're rooting for you.
A truly French Tour de France. It's great.
Yeah. Can someone, Rosael, can you just sort of recap the day of racing for us?
Yes, absolutely. So for the first time in this tour, I believe, we had coverage from kilometer 0, which was such a big deal. I even got a little emotional just being like, oh my God, I can watch the race from the moment they start. And I'll do my best summarizing. I'll have to leave a lot of things out because the reality is there was action just from the go. So let's see, there was the first person to attack was Rihanna Marcus of Little Trek, because, you know, Little Trek is the only team in this tour who hasn't really won a stage or done much, you know, to put their names out there. So she was the first to attack on the first climb, but the peloton wasn't really letting anything go. A lot of the attacks and the group that was forming stayed in between like a 20-second gap from the peloton. And we also saw, very strangely, Kim LaCourt, who was our current leader this morning, also tried to get in that break, but the peloton was just not having it. which I think it's obvious they're not just going to let the leader of their race go. And eventually a big group did get away with riders like Elise Chavi, who's our current Queen of the Mountain, Evita Music, Franziska Koch, Ruth Edwards, and yesterday's winner, Maeva Squiben, like you all said. FDJ had 2 riders up there with made things get a little spicy, especially because Evita Music was the best placed rider in the general classification, just a minute and a few seconds down from Le Court. So that's, I guess, why they were on such a short leash. But eventually the break did grow their lead. It was a little messy. There were too many riders. So that's when we saw Koch, Squiban, and Lotte Klaas, who's this year's winners of Umlu Het Nieuwsblad, break away from that big break. And they stayed in the front for a long while. Then the descent, after that first climb, we had a descent, and we saw our leader, Kim LeCourt, crash as she was trying to take control of that descent in the front. She had Sarah Gigante, her teammate, on her wheel, and she just took that turn descending a little too hot, and the crash looked worse than it really was. She was able to get back on the bike and chase back. But there was some stuff happening in the peloton, because after the descent, the peloton didn't really wait for Le Court, even though she was in the yellow jersey. We can talk about that more. And also it became clear with the way that Kim was working for Gigante that the strategies have switched, and that they were going full on for Sarah Gigante now as their true DC leader. Then came Col de la Madeleine, and big names started just falling away. With about 10 kilometers to go, we started seeing a huge GC shakeup. Gigante attacked. She was joined by Pauline Ferrand Prevot of Bisma Lisevaik, and Demi Ballerin couldn't follow. Then it was PFP, Ferrand Prevot, who took off. She rode away from everyone. She caught the leaders who were ahead, who I believe was Niamh Fisher-Black of Little Trek. And help me here, who was the other leader?
Yara Castelline.
Right, of Phoenix de Koenig.
Oh, Yara Castelline.
Yara Castelline, yes, thank you, of Phoenix de Koenig. She eventually caught them. She dropped them. And she gave it all in that last kilometer to the line. She was suffering a lot. The crowds were absolutely wild, cheering their friend's champion, and she won the stage. Sarah Gigante held for second, Niamh Fisher-Black third, and Ballerin came in fourth. Kasia Niwadoma of Canyon Saram lost over 3 minutes, and I don't know, guys. I think she may be out of GC contention at this point. But yeah, that's my summary. What do you think? Did this race pan out the way you thought it would?
I mean, first off, honorable mention for Sarah Gigante, because how good was that attack?
Beautiful.
That was amazing.
No one Pauline was able to get on her wheel, but initially no one responded. Paulina Royakkers was able to go, but Demi and Kasia, Anna van der Breggen was already off the back. The people that we expected to see to be aggressive, to make their mark on this stage, absolutely didn't. I mean, before the stage, Kasia Niwadoma told interviewers, I'm not afraid of anything. There's no one here that fears me. It's such an honest climb. And she had nothing. She had absolutely nothing to respond to Sarah's attack, which was very good to see. And then, the way initially we have as we mentioned before, we have a Slack channel, and we were talking about how it was a little tame, today's stage, and the climb up started tame as well. And it's not because it was boring, it was because the pace was so high that it was a pure race of attrition. People were falling off the back instead of attacking off the front, and that just indicates how quickly they were going up that mountain. And for Sarah to then also have enough in her legs to attack and make a mark, that was an extremely good move. So honorable mention to her today as well.
Yeah. Also honorable mention, Francie Koch and Maeva Squiben both have just lit up this entire race. They must be so exhausted. I know I said it about Maeva yesterday, but Francie as well in the front today in that breakaway. Those two are going to need 5 months off after this to recover from the efforts that they're putting out in these attacks. And while I would have loved to maybe see one of them get the win again today, or actually Francie get a win today, we were all saying in the Slack channel, it was going to be a little annoying if one of the GC contenders didn't take the win. So definitely psyched when PFP passed Yara and Niamh Fisher-Black and actually moved properly into the lead. Because as we said yesterday, if you don't have at least one finish line photo where the yellow jersey actually has their arms up, it's just missing something, in my opinion.
And do we have any takes on the Peloton not waiting on Kim LaCourt?
Yeah.
We should talk about that.
I definitely want to get into that. And I think also because in the American coverage, the announcers, the commentators were, I think, making it into a bigger deal than it really is. Like, this is bike racing, and you cannot compare it to what happened on the men's Tour de France. So in the men's Tour de France, there was one stage where Pogacar, the eventual winner, had some issues, and they waited for him. And in this stage, our yellow winner went down and no one waited for her. Was this foul play? Was this just cutthroat? Like, what was going on there? And my opinion is that A, it's bike racing, and B, Kim LaCourt was never going to be today's contender. That team had already been open about it. Everyone knew that it was going to be Sarah Gigante. So when they were letting Kim just letting her be on her own and clawing back by herself, that made total sense because the protected rider was safe, and that was Sarah Gigante. Anyway, what do you all think?
Well, before I would weigh in on that, I would say I was a little frustrated with the commentators today in general, and we don't need to spend time on this, but it was interesting here in the U.S. For people following on Peacock, we've had a great week of Anthony McCrossan and Hannah Walker commentating the race. Today, for some reason, they switched, and we have the iconic Phil Liggett and Megan Garnier. Obviously both scholars of the sport, but it sort of was an abrupt change. And, Phil, for all of his many talents, I'm not sure he's that familiar with this women's peloton. And that was frustrating. I know he knows the sport,
is very frustrating,
I mean, he can talk about every climb in the country, but he said Mavis Gueben was the oldest rider in the peloton at one point.
Old,
he was confusing her and Mavi Garcia. And come on, dude, do your homework. But anyway,
well, I think that's the problem. Coming into commentating at in the last two stages, it doesn't make any sense.
Sure.
You don't have the background from covering it for the previous 7.
Yeah.
You're missing so much context.
But I think it is fair that we discuss this because, it is the top viewership spot when you have the last 2 great stages of the Tour de France Femmes on the weekend, and then you make a decision to replace the commentators that have been doing such a good job and who are so familiar with the peloton. It is a bit of a slap in the face to the fans, and you're misinforming the public as well. Come on.
Yeah, I'll say the Flow Bikes commentary, it was still Anthony and Hannah, and it was fantastic today. So, vive la Canada for coverage.
Another reason to be Canadian.
Yet another.
Yeah. If I may, just to finish my thought on this, why this is different, because people will be talking about this. So when Pogacar had his mechanical, he had teammates, and B, the whole situation was different because there was no longer a stage win or a GC shakeup at play. The breakaway that day was gone. He had his teammates to bring him back. So waiting for him didn't cost the peloton anything. They weren't risking their own positions. Today, if they'd waited for Kim when there's a stage to be won and the yellow jersey to take over, they were risking everything if they had stopped. So I don't blame them for continuing to go. They had their eyes on Sarah Gigante, who was going to be their biggest competitor of the day, and that turned out to be true. So no, I don't think they should have waited, and they didn't, and I don't think there's any foul play at play there.
Yeah, no, from the point of view that FDJ Suez made those comments earlier in the tour when Demi Vollering was caught in that crash and lost some. Well, no, she didn't lose time, but she made those comments about how the peloton wasn't very nice and how they didn't open the way to let her through and this and that. And it just seems like at that point, when that happened in today's race, when LaCourt crashed, it was still pretty early. The battle was not really on. If it had happened on Col de la Madeleine, I would be more understanding. But I guess it's just if certain riders are expect a special treatment from people, they should also show that behavior to other people who are, at the same level as they are.
Well, and we heard yesterday that there were complaints that FDJ Suez riders were actually like blocking Kim in stuff. So I think this has been, a really interesting tour for that like team dynamic thing. And, we get this in the men's race too. I think like the one thing that maybe gets me like grinds my gears is when people hear this and they're like, oh yes, women are such like, it's cattier in the women's. No, this stuff happens in the men's field too. And I just hate when it like turns into a commentary about the riders rather than like the racing tactics, which is unfortunate, but it happens in both fields. But I feel like when it happens in the women's field, it just becomes more personal, which bums me out. Okay, should we move to, we finally have some GC updates.
We have a very, very big GC update today. How many of you expected Pauline to be in yellow today? Yeah? We've got Molly cheering. Betsy, was that just your heart?
I mean, my heart, but of course I want to say yes, I knew. But like I was a little hesitant to put all of my cards in the Pauline basket. I'm not gonna lie here. But now am I all in for Pauline for winning this tour? Yes. So
I'm like, hang on, I'm checking my show notes from yesterday to see what I said about Pauline because I'm pretty sure I said she was going to win.
You did. You definitely did.
Yeah.
No, I went for Demi Vollering and I was wrong. But yeah, I'm so happy for Ferrand Prevot. This is the ride of her life.
Yeah, Ferrand Prevot coming into this tour was an unknown quantity. She had just come back from mountain biking for the first time on road in, I think, 6, 7, 8, maybe even 8 years. And she said she came back to road racing because she wanted to win the Tour de France in 2 to 3 years. And then coming into this tour, she was nowhere to be found. She spent 2 months in the mountains, training, getting ready for this. And her director sportif did kind of let it slip that he thought she was ready mentally, physically for this tour. I picked her as my wild card because you just never know when someone's that dedicated to winning a particular stage, this stage. And when it's Pauline Ferrand Prevot, who knows how to peak like none other. So I was very excited to see it. I did not expect it. And specifically, I did not expect the GC to be as follows. So Pauline Ferrand Prevot is leading the GC. She's in the yellow jersey. And then 2.5 minutes behind is Sarah Gigante, who threw this great attack today and basically provided Pauline Ferrand Prevot with a launching pad. And then Demi Vollering, who was the all-out favorite for the Tour de France Femmes and obviously can still win it tomorrow. But she's 3 minutes and 18 seconds down. Then last year's defender, Kasia Niewiadoma, is 3 minutes and 40 seconds down. And rounding out the top 5 is Cedrine Cabal at 4 minutes and 11 seconds. She's actually a bit of a surprise to me personally. I did not expect her to be this high in the GC in the big mountains, so that's really cool to see. And then the other two jerseys, we've got Elise Chebet still in the QM. I think she's got a pretty strong hold on that one. It's pretty fair to say that she probably is going to take that home, along with that beautiful new polka dot bike that she got yesterday. And then the green jersey is still on Lorena Vibes's shoulders, and she too gave a tremendous performance today. Shout out to all the hard workers out there, and she was in there for a very long time. So it was good to see her, and Marianne Vos is in second, and I think that also is a pretty safe bet that she gets to go home with that green jersey.
Yeah, Lorena Wiebes, she took the leadership in a lot of those descents and taking the peloton, through the safest, fastest lines. It was really good to see of her. She was in really good shape today.
And we still have our white jersey, my favorite one, Ninka Vinka. Still in it.
You just like saying her name.
I just love saying her name, yeah.
It sounds like the beginning of a riddle or something. Like Ninka Vinka, and you're gonna say like a tongue
Certainly
twister.
Like a children's book, for sure. Like The Adventures of Ninka Vinka. Okay, there we go. New book idea.
Maybe you have to write it, yeah.
Calling it. And I will admit, I said PFP for the win. I did not expect it to be this dominant. So here's my question. do we think PFP is just a head and shoulders over over everyone on this climb, in climbing in general? Or do we think that Cassia and Demi are actually like kind of down a little bit from where they've been in years past?
Good question.
It's so hard to say because after PFP won Paris-Roubaix, she basically just focused on the Tour de France Femmes. She went to altitude training in Andorra. I think she even bought a house there. Is that correct?
Yep.
And she just kind of disappeared out of the public light for a while there. So it's just impressive how much she can just focus on one goal and like do everything possible to achieve it. Because then we also have to talk about her weight loss. For this tour, and she said so in the interviews before the tour started on the 26th that she had a goal of losing 4 kilograms just for this stage 8 with Col de la Madeleine. And for listeners, 4 kilograms it's almost 9 pounds. That's significant for a rider of her size.
Yeah, she was only 118 to begin with, so that's a lot of weight. And it should be said that people lose weight in cycling because it's a sport, especially in the mountains, that simply comes down to power to weight ratio. So when she lost that weight, she didn't just lose weight; she also got stronger at the same time. Like you have to do both in order to win, and it's the tippy end of the sport, the top tier of the sport. Losing weight just to lose weight isn't going to get you the gains that she saw. So when people are calling her skinny PFP, they have all sorts of names for her about the way she's looking right now, and that is a side effect of doing whatever it takes to win on a stage like this. Betsy?
And it's also important to note that Pauline is not losing weight in a vacuum. She is a professional. She has a team behind her making sure that she is doing this in a safe way. She could only do this probably because she didn't race most of this season. She was recovering as she was getting stronger. You can't do it all and expect a result. And that also I also kind of want to get into this too. Back to your question, Rosael, is like, is Pauline, or was that you, Molly? Anyway, I want to address too the teams behind the 3 women, Pauline, Cassia, and Demi. So it's not just like, is Pauline on fire and Demi and Cassia aren't. Did Pauline have a superior team working behind her? Did Visma Lease a Bike have a better tour than FDJ and Canyon SRAM? Or are we at a point where, how much does that matter when you come into the mountains in a late stage?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Rook, maybe you know the budgets of those teams, but we know that on the men's side, Visma Lease a Bike has one of the highest budgets, just sitting like about second place of UAE Emirates. UAE XRG. Go ahead.
I mean, it's similar in women's cycling, obviously. Visma Lease a Bike is considered a powerhouse team. They have big budgets. They share a lot of the same resources with the men's team. The biggest budget in the women's peloton is UAE, but they're also fairly new. So they're not out and out necessarily dominating yet because they're a young team. They have experienced riders, but also a lot of young riders. Visma Lease a Bike does have more resources than most.
Yeah, and budget matters because it means that they can have the best nutritionists, because every time these nutritionists, if you follow them on Instagram where they're making the meals for Visma Lease a Bike, every meal is labeled per rider. Everything is measured. They're taking into consideration their blood work, what they need, and they can also hire the best doctors for everything. Molly, I think you were going to say something.
Well, actually,
earlier.
To the point about food, just to come back to PFP's weight loss, I think it's really important just to highlight, again, for listeners who are watching on the TV, because they keep mentioning it. We actually debated if we should bring this up and if we should talk about it. And we decided to, because it's been such a hot topic of conversation. We felt like it would be weird for us to not mention it, not discuss it. And what I think, someone who's casually watching it could miss is Yes, she lost weight, but she didn't lose it like during the tour. She didn't lose it while riding. If you look, she is constantly eating and drinking on the bike. I think we see the riders, we see them really skinny during the tour, and then we start thinking like, ooh, I should try this. And then that's how we get down the rabbit hole of like fasted riding and like not fueling our work and stuff like that because we want to be just like them. But the reality is they are taking in a lot of food during this race, just as my PSA, to be clear.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Pauline,
today's riders eat more than any generation before them. They're constantly consuming carbs. They're up to somewhere between 90 and 110 grams of carbs per hour. Which if you're not familiar with that, that's a lot to take on board.
Yeah, that's like 350
Yeah.
to like 600 calories per hour, or now 600, 500.
Yeah. And again, I want to emphasize she did this just for the Tour de France Femmes. Had she lost weight for Paris-Roubaix, I don't think that her win would have worked out, and because that's a very different race. And probably after this tour is over, she's going to gain back some of that weight. I don't know if it will be all of it, but for sure she's going to gain back some of that weight. And then it's something that she may do again to target a different race in the future that has a lot of climbing like this tour has. And it's also nice to see that that she has addressed this in social media by saying this is something like cyclists and athletes do these very extreme things, and it's not an example to follow for everyday athletes. And they're doing it with all the help they have of professionals to do so. But, there's also a lot of cultural things happening as well, because in French culture, it seems to be more common that a lot of women are going to be more petite, more light. But there's just so many factors at play.
Yeah. It's movie stars. They prepare for a certain role. They get really buff. They get really skinny. They get really chubby. They're constantly fluctuating with their weight. In a way, it's kind of like this. You maximize or optimize rather your body for a specific performance during that week, that day, and then you go back to a more sustainable weight or sustainable living. And for your next role.
See, this is why I like ultra running. We actually get fluffy before a race. That's always the goal. So you have a little more on board. Wow. So definitely a much more fun sport.
And also that the losing of weight has also backfired in the past for some riders. And we've seen it a lot talked about in the men's peloton, where riders have found that after gaining weight, they have found that is actually better for them. Even if they have to do a trade-off where they're not going to be a GC rider, they're going to be more of a one-day classic or a stage winner. But yeah, you got to do whatever makes you feel the strongest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd be curious. We talked a few times about the menstrual cycle and the effects that has on performance and training and how it's becoming more, less taboo. I would be curious. I think that would be a good or an interesting thing to ask Pauline is, did she maintain her cycle throughout this process of losing weight? Because ostensibly, as we think, she did this very healthily, very well supported, that she wouldn't have lost her cycle. And that would be a true sign that this was very focused, this was very specific, and it was safe for this specific period in time.
Sounds like an episode for us to do in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that there's another podcast called Le Tour de Gossip by Emma Norsgaard and Floria Mackay, who are both professional writers in the peloton. And there's some episodes where they talk about this a lot, because a lot of riders at this level, they lose their period. It's more common than we think. And for example, one of them was saying how their goal this year is to be able to get their period at least 4 times. So it's maybe you're not getting all year, but I think people are just more aware of how healthy it is to have your period. And even if you, at that level, you're maybe not having it every month, but at that level, you can also try to have it more often, even if it's just a couple of times a year.
For sure. And then there's the whole conversation about hormonal IUDs, which a lot of elite athletes have, because it, not only provides birth control, it also more or less eliminates getting a period, which makes life a little bit easier when you're racing on a wild schedule.
How many men's listeners do you think we've just lost?
Everyone is just, they're out.
I'm like, is our next podcast a period podcast? I kind of like
love
this.
it. I love it.
We can totally dive in. There's a lot to be said on that topic.
Yeah, the thing is, it's so personal. It's so personal because Kim LaCourt won a stage on her period, but not everybody feels that good when they're in this. So it's so personal. So definitely very interesting to discuss.
Now, before we get into our Queen of the Stage, the other shout out I wanted to give that we haven't talked about for a very long time in today's race, Evita Muzik was in the virtual leaders jersey. And I'm curious what you all thought about FDJ Suez's tactics with that and how it played out. Was it on purpose? Did it work out the way they hoped? I mean, clearly it didn't work out the exact way they hoped, but did they play it the way they planned, or did she end up in there just kind of accidentally? It was a little weird.
Well, I think that she was sent there to make other teams in the peloton work to reel back that breakaway, which we saw happening with Bisma and AG Insurance Sudal doing a lot of the work. Not that FDJ also did some work, but they were not, they didn't have that urgency that other teams have. And then secondly, she was probably put there as a satellite rider for Demi Vollering, which didn't work because Demi, I guess, didn't have the legs today. But eventually, Musique, once Musique was dropped off from the Pauline Ferrand Prevot group and Sarah Gigante group, she then fell back to Demi Vollering's group and was able to help her save a little bit of time there at the end.
It's been really fun seeing the number of satellite riders since we did that question, because now I'm noticing it so much more.
Well, and Shabby for that team was a great satellite rider.
Yeah. Okay, Betsy, Queen of the Stage. Let's do it. I mean,
It's a bit anticlimactic, right? I love an underdog. I love someone you wouldn't expect, but today it was all about PFP, and that is just fine because it was sort of the moment we'd all been waiting for. And I mean, like the collective we cycling audience, but also the four of us. I mean, we've been talking about Pauline since before we started recording. She was, I think, a favorite for all of us, and maybe for different reasons. I know for me personally, I'm a huge fan of mountain biking, and that's the Pauline Ferrand Prevot that I know. I mean, certainly I know her palmares. I know she's been racing since she was a kid. I know that she has been a world champion in every discipline, I suppose, save BMX, but
maybe next, now that she can retire from the road.
Yeah, right. What is next? And I got to say, like, personally, I hope she goes back to mountain biking, but I also understand if she's like,
done racing.
Yeah. I mean, maybe she's planning on having a family. Who knows? She can do whatever she wants in my book, and she clearly can. Like, I know Voss is the GOAT, like, for sure, but so is Pauline. There can be multiple goats, right? And so when I saw her cross the line today with those, like, with her arm raised, it's like you could have erased the tarmac road behind her, and that could have been a single track. That could have been a short track. It could have been a gravel road, and that's singular. And I'm not familiar enough with the men's side of the sport to know if there's ever been a male racer who excels on every type of bike.
No, this is why she's so unique. Like Marianne Vos has world championships on, obviously plenty of them in cyclocross, on the road, on the track, and in gravel, right? So that's 4 right there. Pauline has it in mountain bike. Singular, like cross country mountain bike, team relay, marathon. So it's all mountain biking still. Road, cyclocross, and gravel. No, as far as I know, male or female cyclist has that many, has a world championships in that many disciplines. The only thing she's missing is track. But she's just has never really showed any interest in track, although I'm fully convinced that she could totally win a world championships on the track if she chose to do so, because she's a type of rider, she sets a goal and she achieves it. It's been remarkable. I've watched her career since day one, when she was this young up-and-coming rider with her little diamond stud in her teeth, and joined Rabobank. Mind you, when she became a world champion in 3 disciplines in 1 calendar year, she wasn't even paid. she was like maybe stipended, but she was mostly a new athlete that they were taking a chance on. And look what she's done with her career since. Like, it's been a truly remarkable journey, and it'd be super rewarding to see her in yellow tomorrow.
It was so, I had chills when, the cameraman flashed to her Olympic rings tattoo on her forearm. I also want to add too, she's been a short track mountain bike world champion too. So truly every discipline on the dirt.
Yeah.
But Molly, she was your pick kind of from the get-go. You were the only one brave enough to really back her fully. Why was that?
I think it's similar to Rook. I've also been following her career since she was, a teeny tiny little young cyclocross racer. And she was coming up as I was coming up in cyclocross journalism, I think. Like, when I got into it, Voss was already established as the GOAT. Mm-hmm. But PFP was this, up and coming person. So I think I maybe feel like my career has sort of followed hers. And I am not the GOAT of journalism. She has clearly outstripped me by a long shot, but getting to kind of come up at the same time, I think I will just never bet against her, because every time someone has, she manages to prove them wildly wrong. So also, her attitude is just awesome. Her voice is admittedly very silly, and I love it so much. Just gonna put that out there.
No, it is true.
Sorry.
The other thing I really respect about her is that, I'm not sure if you guys remember, in Rio, she quit mid-race. She's like, I am done. She rode right past the media and didn't say a word to anyone and just disappeared. Literally disappeared for a few months from any sort of sport for a while. And turns out she was really struggling with some mental health issues. The pressure on this young rider from having had such a phenomenal start in the sport, all these rainbows, it just became too much. And so she just took care of herself for a while. She was outspoken about it. And ever since then, she's taken choices in her career to prioritize joy for herself. What brings me joy, and what can I do that isn't taken too seriously? The pressures that I put on myself are the only pressures I want to be dealing with. And so I really respect that. Someone who was so young when they started, had so much pressure on them, had a legitimate breakdown, and then comes back and becomes one of the most dominant riders the sport has ever seen.
Yeah, and not just that, she as an individual, I find it hard to find riders who are great individually, but also good teammates. She was a very good teammate to Marianne Vos earlier in the tour, and just following Bisma Bike and the individual riders on social media, she's always there from them. They have a lot of group time, and imagine having somebody with her experience in your team who's also so nice and so willing to share and help.
For sure. I fully have to admit, because Voss seems to really like her, I'm okay, she must be a really good person.
Earlier this year, I interviewed her younger sister, Axel, who is racing gravel professionally now, and we talked about how challenging it was to grow up as Pauline Ferrand Prevot's younger sister, especially when Axel was a cyclist as well. But I guess their relationship has deepened in the last year, perhaps. And Axel said it was after Pauline won the Olympics, won the gold in the mountain bike. She had, she had achieved this sort of, it had been the last thing on her list, but not really, because there's this one more thing. But they did a training camp together, and Pauline was incredibly generous with her knowledge and her time and everything that she's learned throughout her career. I think she's more ready than she had been to take the time to share it with her sister. And maybe that's something we will see going forward with Pauline is, will she move into a mentorship role, a director role, a coach role? I mean, with the wealth of experience she has across disciplines and growing up in the sport, it'll be cool to see what she decides to do. If she wants to keep racing, that is also totally fine.
BMX. Try BMX next. Why not? Or maybe bike ballet. I feel like that would be a good one too. Bike soccer.
You mean cycloball?
Cycloball, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that feels like a start to no dumb questions. We're like, what sport would Pauline play? But let's start with, Rook, what's up with number 51? That's PFP's number in this tour. Everyone keeps mentioning it. What's it mean?
Yeah, so number 51 holds a very special, somewhat mythical role in cycling. Before I explain 51 specifically, let me back up a little bit and explain how numbers work in general. Every rider in the peloton obviously has a unique number. The way that the numbers work is that the team with the rider who won last year, they get number 1 in the beginning, and then the rider, their team leader, gets also 1. So, for example, Kasia, there is number 11. Her team is number 1, and she is the leader of that team, so she gets 11. From last year's team that got second, they start at 20, and then the leader of that team is 21. So it goes, 11, 21. 31, 41, 51. And 51 was the number of Jacques Anquetil in the Tour de France when he won the first time. He was the first rider in the Tour de France to win 5 Tour de France editions in total. And since he wore number 51 during his first tour in 1957, it started this lore of a lucky number. Because several other cyclists have won the Tour wearing that lucky number. There is Louis Ossania from 1973, Bernard Thévenet in 1975, who famously beat Eddie Merckx that tour. So yeah, 51 is just becomes a lucky number. So in this case, the fifth team is the fifth team is Visma Leasebike, and Pauline was signaled as their leader, so she got 51. And what's interesting too, I think, when you look at who has number 1s, that should tell you from the get-go who that team will be riding for.
Okay, so that was what I was going to say as far as like the mythic status goes. It's always the team leader who has the 1, and the fifth team should probably be one of the better teams. So is it really that magical of a number? Why have we fixated on this so much?
Because several winners of previous men's Tour de France have won the Tour wearing that number, and so it just becomes a lucky thing.
Yeah, and she also mentioned in an interview that it is also a special number to her because of the province that she comes from in France has the number 51 as well.
As an area code, yeah.
As an area code, yes.
But given the number's like mythic status, I didn't know about it, to be honest. And then when I looked into it, while it did produce a bunch of a flurry of winners in the 70s, it hasn't produced a winner since 1978. So that's pretty cool if it produces a winner in 2025.
I mean, we're talking about Pauline as though she's already won, but we gotta talk about tomorrow, because tomorrow is another very, very big day. Someone want to tell us what's going to happen tomorrow?
Yeah, I can give you the preview for tomorrow. So stage 9, my goodness, after surviving the QueenStage today and that brutal ascent of the Col de la Madeleine, the riders have one more mountain battle. Oh my goodness. It's stage 9, the final day of the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, and the last shot to shake up the GC. Tomorrow's route goes 124 kilometers from Pras-sur-Arly to Châtel in the French Alps near the Swiss border. And it's not just the climbs that will test the riders. It is also the descents. Like tomorrow, we're also going to see a lot of sharp switchbacks, narrow roads, and technical downhills throughout the stage that could open gaps in a flash. There are 4 categorized climbs. It starts with the Côte d'Arrache-la-Frasse, 6.2 kilometer climb at 7.1 kick of gradient. That's followed by the beast of the day, which is the Col de Souplin, an 11.6 kilometer climb punishing at 8.5% gradient. And after a long twisty descent into Morcine, the peloton hits the Col du Corbier. It's a short and steep climb at 5.9 kilometers and also at 8.5%. Then there's a steady final climb into the ski resort finish in Châtel, Le Portes du Soleil. And yeah, a lot of climbing, not as bad as today, but it could be decisive as well. What do you think is going to happen?
Ooh, I mean, look, I'm PFP for president at this point, so yeah, I can't call anyone else. That said, I mean, she did look tired, so
that's the thing. Like, we haven't seen her do this, so we don't know how she will recover. But if she can do what she did today, she can win this
or
tour.
at least just stay safe, right? Like, if she can just kind of keep an eye on everybody else and stay within a couple minutes, she can get it. She has time to lose. This isn't going to be like a last year 4-second situation. I mean, it could, I guess, technically come down to a 4-second situation. But she's coming in with a great lead. And, 2 minutes is nothing, but as long as she can just stay protected, and she has a full team backing her, everyone else has kind of been dropping like flies, but Visma Bike still has their full contingent, I believe. And they're just going to be around her tomorrow, just making sure that she is delivered exactly where she needs to be. So my vote's on her, but anyone else want to call? Isn't it so funny that we started this a week ago thinking like, I mean, who can beat Vollering? Like, is that even possible? And also, like, SD Works. I mean, we should really mention them. They might be in the mix. And now we're just like, Visma Bike.
Where was Anna van der Breggen today?
I just could not on that climb.
Oh my God. We did not mention her at all. That says it all.
Yeah.
She's a goat, too. She's also a goat.
Yeah, I think that middle climb,
goats.
I'm looking
Too
at
many
the...
goats.
So many goats.
This climb is going to break some legs.
Yeah, no, I think tomorrow it's obviously the last stage. It's all or nothing, and I really hope the peloton races like it's all or nothing. This whole defensive riding we've seen so far, I understand it. It's just it's honestly doesn't make for the best viewing, in my opinion. And the only one that gets to ride defensively tomorrow is Pauline. The rest needs to attack, be aggressive, and try. I mean, 2.5 minutes isn't a whole lot on these really big climbs, but it's not nothing. And they're gonna have to do something spectacularly, something that means Pauline cannot follow, because if you take her with you, you're not going to take down that 2.5 minute gap. So we're going to need action and fireworks and something spectacular tomorrow, and that's what I'll be looking for.
Could we have an unholy alliance of Canyon, SRAM, FDJ Suez? Like Cassia and Demi are just like, oh no, she's not taking our tour.
You're forgetting
honestly,
IG Sedal.
I had that thought about Cassia and Demi today when they were like for a few minutes riding sort of side by side and looking at each other. I was like, what if? But I agree with you, Rook. Like, there has been a lot of defensive, negative racing, whatever you want to call it. And I know people kind of like poo-poo that as if it's actually like negative, that it's in quality, but it's a type of racing and it's fair game. And we see it a ton in men's racing, so why can't women do it too? However, it is not as fun to watch, and it can lead people to say like, oh, it's boring, no one's doing anything. And so I agree with you that I hope tomorrow like that whole thing blows up, because why wouldn't it? You got one more day to bring the fireworks. And I know I'm talking like Pauline has already won, and I want her to win, but if someone else wins, that's also really cool. And that, I think, we've talked about that all week, how there have been, at any moment, 4 to 5 women who were like, any of them, this could be anyone's race. This could be any of those women's race. And that is very exciting for the sport.
Yeah,
Rosael, what do you think?
Every edition of this Tour de France Femmes, of this revamped Tour de France Femmes, has been a different animal. And I just looked up the gaps that we had last year, going from stage 7 to stage 8, which was the final stage in 2024. And the gaps were just seconds. I mean, I see Lia Wadoma had 27 seconds to Puck Peters, who was sitting in second in the GC at that stage, followed by Cedrine Kerbal. And then, let's see, Demi Vollering was sitting 1 minute and 15 seconds down. So I guess it is a similar gap to what we have today, but a lot can change tomorrow now that we have an extra day of racing in the Tour de France.
Maybe we're going to see another Damie and Pauline Royakkers duo attack happening.
I would love to see a couple of them working together and like really trying to make something happen. And just a reminder, tomorrow, I think we're going to see the full stage again, but coverage starts a bit later, 9:15 a.m. Eastern Standard, and it's going to finish after lunch. So be prepared, get your workouts in early if you're trying to ride around this stage. Any last thoughts before we wrap?
Oh, watch the Femmes. Enjoy it.
Yes, and make sure, of course, you're subscribed to our Re-Listen to podcasts. 5-star rating and review. You're running out of time. We only have one stage left. I mean, we'll still be around, but we could really use the 5-star rating while it's on your mind. So go do that right now. And also share us with a friend. You can find us on queenstage.cc on Instagram. Email us, message us with questions. We'd love to hear from you as this race comes down. Tell us, message us, can anyone else but Pauline win this tour? And we'll see you back here tomorrow to discuss how it went down.